The stars were quiet, but the Battlestar Galactica was never silent. Inside the old warship, engines hummed, metal creaked, and people moved with tired purpose. It carried the last of humanity. The colonies were gone. Burnt. Broken. Left behind as smoke and memory. Captain Alan Morris stood on the command deck and looked at the drifting lights of the fleet. Small ships, damaged ships, crowded ships. Families, soldiers, farmers, children. All of them depended on Galactica. He felt the weight of every life like a stone on his chest. Supplies were low. Fuel was counted again and again. Food was rationed tighter each week. Water was recycled until it tasted like metal. People argued more now. Tempers were short. Fear sat behind every conversation even when no one spoke it aloud. Alan kept his voice calm when he gave orders. He walked the decks every day not because he had to, but because people needed to see him. When they saw him, they stood straighter. They remembered that someone was still in charge. That mattered more than weapons. Far beyond human sensors, something watched. The alien observers floated in deep space, hidden by fields of light and silence. Their vessels did not move like ships. They drifted like thoughts. Cold instruments measured the human fleet. Power use. Movement patterns. Emotional signals. The aliens had studied many species. They believed they understood survival. Order. Control. To them, humans were simple. Loud. Emotional. Easy to break. They saw a fleet running, not fighting. A people in retreat. Numbers shrinking. Resources fading. To the aliens, this meant only one thing. Extinction delayed. Within the Galactica, Captain Morris met with his senior officers. The room was small. The lights were dimmed to save power. Charts flickered on old screens. "We can't keep this pace," said Mark Ellison, a navigation officer with dark circles under his eyes. "Fuel won't last." "We slow down, we risk attack," said Laura Grant, an engineer, her hands stained with grease she never had time to wash off. "And the engines don't like sudden changes. They're already pushed too far." Alan listened. He did not rush them. Humans talked over each other when stressed, but ideas came from that noise. He let it happen. In the end, they chose a risky route. A longer path through empty space. Fewer places to hide, but fewer chances to be followed. The fleet turned, slowly, like a wounded animal changing direction. The aliens noticed. They recorded the change and adjusted their models. Humans avoided danger when afraid. That was the rule. But this choice increased risk. It did not fit. Emotional error, the alien analysts concluded. Stress response. Short-term thinking. They continued to watch. Days passed. A minor system failed on one of the civilian ships. Then another. Small problems spread like cracks in ice. On Galactica, Laura Grant slept beside engine panels. She fixed what she could and taught others to fix the rest. She did not wait for permission. She asked, argued, explained, and acted. When someone disagreed, they tried both ideas. If one failed, they switched fast. The aliens observed this with mild interest. Cooperation was normal. But humans did it without strict hierarchy. Orders bent. Plans changed mid-action. That reduces efficiency, the alien records noted. On the civilian ship Dawn's Hope, food stores spoiled due to a cooling failure. Panic spread fast. People shouted. Children cried. Security moved in. Dr. Emily Reed stepped between them. She spoke quietly. She organized people into groups. Some repaired. Some cooked what could be saved. Some shared their own food. It was not enough, but it slowed the fear. The ship survived. Captain Morris heard about it hours later. He sent supplies anyway, even though Galactica needed them too. The fleet noticed. Morale rose just a little. The aliens noticed that as well. They sacrifice efficiency for emotion, they said. This will shorten survival. But time passed and the fleet did not collapse. Then the aliens decided to test their theory. A small threat was introduced. Not an attack. Just pressure. A signal echo placed ahead of the fleet. Something that would look like danger but move slowly. Something to force a reaction. The human sensors detected it late. Confusion spread across the fleet. "What is it?" someone asked. "No clear reading," Mark said. "It's wrong." People argued. Some wanted to flee. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to investigate. Alan listened again. He felt fear, yes, but also something else. Curiosity. Anger. Stubborn will. "We don't panic," he said. "We move together. Slow and ready." It was not a perfect plan. It was not even a full plan. But it was enough to start. Pilots stayed alert. Engineers adjusted power. Civilians were warned but not terrified. Truth was shared, not hidden. The fleet moved. The alien observers waited for failure. It did not come. Instead, humans adapted. They changed formation twice. They tested sensors in new ways. A young technician suggested using old equipment meant for mining scans. It worked better. The threat faded. It had never been real. The aliens were silent for a long time. Unexpected outcome, the record said. Captain Morris stood alone later, looking at the stars. He did not know he had been tested. He only knew they were still alive. That was enough for one day. Behind unseen eyes, the aliens updated their models. Humans were still weak. Still few. Still running. But they were no longer predictable. And that was the first mistake. The alien watchers did not strike with weapons. They believed force was wasteful. Instead, they chose pressure. A quiet push. A problem placed in the path of the human fleet, shaped to cause fear and mistakes. Deep ahead of the Battlestar Galactica, something moved through space. It was not alive, but it behaved like a hunter. Old machines drifted together, pulled by a signal the aliens controlled. Broken satellites, lost probes, chunks of metal from forgotten wars. Slowly the mass grew. Slowly, it drifted toward the human path. To the alien observers, this was simple. Humans would panic. They would scatter. Order would fail. On Galactica, the warning came as a soft alarm. Then another. Then a stream of confusing data. Pilot Mark Ellis leaned closer to his console. He had flown fighters since before the fall of the colonies. He trusted instincts more than screens. "This isn't right," he said. "It's not one object. It's many moving together." A junior officer shrugged. "Debris field. We've passed those before." Mark shook his head. "Not like this. It's guided." Across the ship, Laura Grant heard a different warning. A vibration in the engine frame. A pattern she had felt once before during a bad jump. She frowned and tapped the panel. "Power flow is uneven," she muttered. "Like we're being pulled." She reported it, but the bridge was already loud. Voices overlapped. People argued about speed, direction, and risk. The aliens listened in. "Disorder increasing," they recorded. "Cohesion weakening." Captain Alan Morris raised his hand. Slowly the room quieted. He did not shout. He never did. "Speak one at a time," he said. "Mark, Laura. You first." Mark explained what he saw. Laura explained what she felt. They did not fully agree, but their warnings overlapped. "That thing is not natural," Laura said. "And if we jump now, the engines may not hold." Someone else argued they should jump anyway. Another said to scatter the fleet. A third suggested hiding among nearby asteroids. The discussion grew sharp. Voices rose. Fear slipped into the cracks. The aliens were pleased. "Emotional conflict confirmed," they said. "Decision paralysis expected." But then something human happened. A civilian captain spoke up over the fleet channel. "My ship can't jump fast. If we scatter, we die." Another voice followed. "Mine too." Then another. And another. Silence fell. Alan Morris nodded once. "We stay together," he said. "That part is not a debate." The plan that followed was not elegant. It was rough. It had flaws. But it moved forward. Fighter pilots launched to scout the threat. Engineers shifted power by hand, rerouting systems that were never meant to connect. Navigation officers tested strange angles, looking for gaps. Mark Ellis flew close to the debris mass. Too close for comfort. He saw metal spinning, scraping, slowly locking together like teeth. "It's being pulled," he said. "Something's guiding it." "Can you break it apart?" Alan asked. "Not cleanly," Mark replied. "But I can make it messy." He did not wait for permission. He fired, not at the center but at weak edges. The debris shattered unevenly. Pieces flew off in random paths. The alien signal adjusted, trying to regain control. Laura felt it instantly. "They're reacting," she said. "Whatever's pulling that mess just changed frequency." She made a fast choice. Against standard rules, she cut power to one stabilizer and overloaded another. Alarm screamed. "Laura," someone shouted. "Trust me," she said. "Or don't. But do it now." The ship shook. The fleet formation wobbled. Then the pull weakened. The debris field broke apart further, no longer moving as one. Dangerous, yes, but no longer a trap. Small ships took damage. One lost an antenna. Another lost power for several minutes. But no one was destroyed. The fleet pushed through. On the alien vessels, confusion spread. "They did not retreat," one observer noted. "They increased risk." "They violated their own safety rules," said another. This is inefficient. But effective, a third replied. Inside Galactica the danger was not over. Secondary failures spread from Laura's overload. Fires broke out. Air pressure dropped on one deck. Teams moved without waiting for orders. People grabbed tools. Some failed. Some succeeded. When something did not work, they changed it fast. Arguments happened in the middle of action. That won't hold. Then try this. No, that will overload. Do it anyway. Sometimes they were wrong. Sometimes they were right. But they never froze. Dr. Emily Reed moved between injured crew, giving short instructions, calm words, steady hands. She did not promise safety. She promised effort. Hours later, the fleet drifted into quiet space again. The threat was gone. Exhaustion replaced fear. People slumped where they stood. Some laughed, shaky and loud. Others cried without shame. Mark Ellis landed his fighter and sat in silence for a long time before standing. Laura Grant finally rested her head against a bulkhead and closed her eyes for exactly 3 minutes before another alert called her back. Captain Morris addressed the fleet. His message was short. "We're still here," he said. "We did that together." The aliens watched the aftermath. No collapse. No panic spiral. No final failure. Instead, something worse. Learning. Human systems updated. Crews shared what worked and what failed. Mistakes were spoken aloud. Arguments turned into lessons. The alien records updated slowly. Humans do not rely on fixed plans, they noted. They rely on shared adjustment. This reduces predictability, another system flagged. For the first time, the observers felt something close to unease. They had tested the fleet. The fleet had answered. And the answer was not fear. Pressure did not come all at once. It came in layers. The alien observers learned from the last test. Humans did not break when danger appeared. They adapted. So the aliens changed approach. Instead of one clear threat, they applied many small ones. Delays. Shortages. Confusion. Problems that fed on fear and exhaustion. Signals interfered with sensors. Jump calculations drifted just enough to cause doubt. Old systems failed sooner than expected. Nothing deadly by itself. Together, it was meant to grind the fleet down. Inside the Battlestar Galactica, stress showed in every movement. People slept less. Voices grew sharper. Small mistakes became common. A missed seal caused air loss on one deck. A wrong setting damaged a pump beyond repair. Loss followed. A civilian ship lagged behind during a jump. Its signal faded. No wreckage appeared. No survivors answered. Silence spread through the fleet like cold. Dr. Emily Reed stood in the medical bay when the news arrived. She paused, closed her eyes for one breath, then went back to work. A child needed stitches. A pilot needed painkillers. Grief would wait. Emily had learned something since the colonies fell. People did not need lies. They needed direction. Later that day, she gathered her team. "People are tired," she said simply. "They're scared. Some are angry. That's normal." A nurse asked, "What do we tell them?" Emily shook her head. "We don't tell them anything false. We listen. Then we give them something to do." The alien observers watched this with interest. Morale maintenance detected. They recorded. Temporary effect only. But it did not fade. Emily walked the ships when she could. She spoke to crew, civilians, children. She did not speak long. She asked questions. She remembered names. When people argued, she did not stop them. She helped them argue better. On one ship, 2 engineers blamed each other for a power failure. Emily listened, then said, "Fix it together. Argue after." They did. The system held. Elsewhere, a food riot almost began when rations were cut again. Emily stepped into the crowd, unarmed. "If you push," she said calmly, "someone will fall. If someone falls, someone will get hurt. Then we all lose." Someone shouted back, "We're already losing." "Yes," she replied. "That's why we don't lose each other too." The shouting slowed. People stepped back. The aliens increased pressure again. A false threat appeared on long-range sensors. Then vanished. Then returned in a different place. Sleep became harder. Every alarm felt real. On the bridge, Captain Alan Morris felt the strain in his bones. His officers disagreed more often now. Plans changed daily. Sometimes hourly. Mark Ellis slammed his hand on a console during one argument. "We can't keep reacting like this." Laura Grant snapped back, "Then stop pretending we can plan everything." Silence followed. Alan did not stop the argument. He waited. Laura exhaled. "Look, the rules we had don't fit anymore. That doesn't mean we stop thinking. It means we think faster. Mark rubbed his face. I hate that you're right. They shared a tired smile. The aliens watched closely. Command instability rising, they noted. Trust erosion expected. But trust did not erode. It shifted. Humans stopped trusting plants. They trusted people. When sensors failed, they trusted the pilot who said something felt wrong. When systems disagreed, they trusted the engineer who knew the sound of a healthy engine. When morale dipped, they trusted the doctor who knew when to speak and when to stay quiet. During one crisis, a navigation error sent a ship too close to a gravity well. Alarms screamed. Procedures said to cut engines and wait. The pilot ignored the procedure. Engines won't restart in time, she said. I'm turning now. Data says, someone began. I know what the data says, she replied. I also know what this ship can do. She turned. The ship survived. The aliens flagged the moment. Rule violation, they recorded. Outcome positive. This pattern repeated. Humans broke rules they had written themselves. They argued while acting. They trusted imperfect judgment over perfect delay. Loss still came. Another ship was damaged beyond repair. People died. Funerals were quiet and short. Work resumed after. The aliens expected despair. Instead, grief made humans careful, not frozen. Emily Reed attended every funeral she could. She did not speak long. She stood with people. She let silence do the work. After one service, a young crewman asked her, "How do you keep going?" Emily answered honestly, "I don't think about forever. I think about the next person who needs help." The alien observers struggled to model this behavior. They accept uncertainty, one system noted. They act without full prediction. That increases survival variance, another replied. But also increases resilience. The pressure campaign continued for days. Then weeks. The fleet bent. It did not break. Small innovations spread fast. Crews shared fixes over open channels. No one waited for approval if time mattered. Mistakes were admitted quickly. That saved lives. Captain Morris realized something during a quiet moment on the bridge. They were no longer running blindly. They were learning how to move together under stress. Far away, the Alien Council reviewed the data. Fear had not caused collapse. It had sharpened humans. And that was not supposed to happen. For the first time, the observers considered a new possibility. Maybe humans were not weak because they felt fear. Maybe fear was part of how they survived. And maybe that was the second mistake. The battle began without warning. One moment, the fleet moved through empty space. The next, alarms screamed across every ship. Contacts appeared on sensors, fast and sharp. Not debris. Not false echoes. Real threats. The alien observers had pushed too far. Pressure was no longer enough. They needed clear data. They needed to see how humans reacted to true danger. Energy flashes cut through space. Explosions bloomed like harsh stars. Civilian ships scattered despite orders to hold formation. On the Battlestar Galactica, power flickered. One screen went dark. Then another. Shields failing on Deck 4. Communications lagging. We lost targeting. Captain Alan Morris opened his mouth to give orders, then stopped. Too many problems. Too many voices. Orders would arrive late. The battle was already breaking the rules. Fighter squadrons launched into chaos. Pilots shouted warnings and half-formed plans over open channels. Some messages cut out mid-sentence. Lieutenant James Walker flew at the front of Red Squadron. His fighter shook as a blast tore past him. He had followed rules his whole career. Formations. Signals. Timing. None of it mattered now. Red 2, you're leaking fuel, someone shouted. I know, came the reply. I can still fly. James looked at his displays. Half were dead. The rest lagged behind reality. Red Squadron, James said, voice steady, stay where you can see each other. Forget the pattern. Follow me. Someone hesitated. That's not standard. I know, James said. Trust me anyway. He banked hard, flying low across the hull of Galactica, using the massive ship as cover. Others followed, not because the order was perfect but because it came fast. Enemy fire tracked them. One fighter was hit and spun out. Red 5 is down, a voice cried. James felt it like a punch. He did not slow. Red 5, eject if you can, he said. Red Squad, keep moving. They dove into scattered wreckage, twisting through tight gaps. James flew by feel now. He watched shadows. He judged distance by instinct, not numbers. On Galactica, Laura Grant fought failing systems. Power surged and dropped without rhythm. Nothing is talking to anything else, she said. We're flying blind. Captain Morris nodded. Then we fly human. He opened all channels. Everyone, he said, do what works. Share it fast. Across the fleet, rules dissolved. Engineers rerouted power without approval. Pilots changed targets mid-flight. Medics set up triage wherever space allowed. No one waited. Everyone moved. The aliens watched in shock. Command structure collapsing, their systems reported. Yet effectiveness remains high, another flagged. The aliens made a decision. A small one. A single intervention. They disrupted one enemy signal. Just enough to see what humans would do with sudden advantage. Enemy fire stuttered. Openings appeared. James Walker saw it instantly. Now, he shouted. Breakthrough now. Red Squadron surged forward, firing into weak points. 2 enemy craft fell silent. But the moment passed quickly. Enemy systems adapted. James did not celebrate. He pulled back. Red Squad were out. Follow me home. Home? Someone asked. We're still in the fight. James glanced at his fuel readout. Almost empty. Damage alarms blinked red. We don't win if we don't live, he said. Move. They turned back toward Galactica. Enemy fire chased them. One fighter lagged behind, engines failing. James slowed without thinking. He flew between the enemy and the damaged craft, taking hits meant for another. His fighter screamed in protest. Lieutenant, pull away, someone shouted. No, James said. Not yet. He guided the damaged fighter closer, close enough to lock towing clamps. It was not standard. It was risky. It worked. They limped back together. On Galactica, the battle turned slowly. Not cleanly. Not decisively. But enough. The enemy withdrew. Silence followed, broken only by emergency alarms and exhausted breathing. James landed hard. His fighter was scrap. He climbed out, legs shaking, hands numb. Captain Morris met him in the hangar. That was not by the book, the captain said. James nodded. No, sir. Morris studied the damaged fighters returning one by one. Fewer than they had sent out. More than expected. You brought them back, Morris said. James swallowed. I just did what felt right. The alien observers reviewed everything. Their single intervention had not controlled the outcome. It had made humans faster, sharper, more unpredictable. They adapt even to advantage, one system noted. They do not follow expected victory patterns, another replied. On Galactica, repairs began before the smoke cleared. Arguments happened in the middle of fixing. Laughter broke out in strange places. Loss was counted. Names were spoken. But the fleet still moved. The aliens realized something unsettling. They could no longer tell which human action was instinct and which was choice. And that meant the data was no longer clean. The battle had answered their final question. Humans did not need perfect systems. They were the system. And that was the fatal mistake. The alien ships did not leave in anger. They left in silence. Far from human space, the observers gathered their data one last time. Screens filled with moving symbols and slow calculations. Models ran and failed. Predictions broke apart. Humans should have collapsed. That was the rule. Fear, loss, and chaos always ended the same way for other species. Control weakened, order failed, and survival ended. But humans did not follow that path. They argued. They broke rules. They trusted feelings as much as numbers. They changed plans while danger was still moving. The alien records updated. Status, observation ended. Assessment, unstable species. Classification, dangerous variable. The words carried weight. A dangerous variable was not an enemy. It was worse. It was something that could not be planned around. The observers sealed their records. The human fleet was marked for avoidance, not conquest. Interference would only create more unknowns. With careful precision, the alien ships slipped away. Their signals faded. Space returned to quiet. On the Battlestar Galactica, no one noticed. Repairs continued. Wounds were treated. Names of the dead were recorded and spoken softly. Life went on because it had to. Anna Collins stood near an observation window on a lower deck. She was not a soldier. She worked maintenance, checking air filters and cleaning panels no one else noticed. She liked the quiet shifts. Stars stretched across the glass like frozen fire. She rested her hand on the cold surface and breathed slowly. For the first time in days there were no alarms. No shouting. Just the low hum of the ship. She thought of home. Not the colonies as they were, but as they felt. Warm light. Voices. Safe nights. She did not know how close it had all come to ending. Elsewhere on the ship, Captain Alan Morris reviewed reports. Losses were heavy. Survival was not clean. But the fleet still existed. He leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. "We're still here," he whispered, not as an order but as a fact. Mark Ellis walked past the hangar, watching crews strip damaged fighters for parts. He smiled faintly. The machines were broken. The pilots were alive. That mattered more. Laura Grant slept in a chair beside an engine core, tools still in her hands. Someone placed a blanket over her without waking her. Dr. Emily Reed finished a long shift and sat alone in the medical bay. She wrote notes by hand. She had learned that writing slowed her thoughts. It made the weight easier to carry. The fleet moved on. No one celebrated. No one declared victory. Humans did not need that. Survival was enough. Far beyond their sight, the Alien Council reached its final conclusion. They had believed strength came from control. From strict systems. From perfect prediction. Humans had none of that. Humans chose instead. They chose to trust people over plans. They chose to act with incomplete knowledge. They chose to care even when caring hurt. That choice made them impossible to finish. That choice made them dangerous. Back on Galactica, Anna Collins turned away from the stars and returned to her work. A filter needed replacing. A small task. A necessary one. The ship carried on. Humanity carried on. And the galaxy, quiet and vast, adjusted to a future it could no longer predict.